Good morning, everybody. I am live today, not from the birdhouse, but actually from my own yard where I thought I would show you some of my gardens that I have put in order to help attract wildlife like butterflies and bees and other things to the front and backyard. And also to show that you don't need a big space in order to create some kind of wildlife habitat. I have a very small space here in the city. You might hear the sounds of the city behind me as I go through. But I thought I would show you some of the plants that I have had success with in order to attract some different things to the yard. And I'm going to start off here with a new garden I'm putting in. I haven't had good luck with putting in too many plants in this front garden because it's so shaded, but I just started putting in some more natives. Now, this isn't in bloom yet, but it's very, very close. This is New York ironweed, and I've got some in the backyard, which I'll show you. That's just starting to bloom, but this can get really, really tall. The stuff in my backyard is about 7, 8 feet tall or so, and so I thought this would be a really good showy plant in the front yard late into summer. So that'll bloom late summer into the early fall. And so nothing is really coming up here so much yet. I've got some coneflower I just planted, some swamp milkweed, which is still young. This black-eyed Susan's been here for a bit. See that it's growing and spreading. This is really good. Use it to eat the seeds out of. And then I just planted some more blazing star, also known as liatris. This is another native plant here. So switching all to natives in the front garden. And then here's another swamp milkweed. And it's full of my little friends, all these little aphids, which is always fun. But then also in the front yard, I've got a whole bunch more black-eyed Susan that's just kind of popping up. You can see all those little yellow patches of that. And then this is not a native, but it is a really popular nectar producing plant. This is called lantana, and this is an annual, so I do have to plant it every year. In the South, it is considered more of an invasive, but here it doesn't survive the winter. So this is a really great nectar producing plant that will attract hummingbirds and butterflies. So I've got a few of those mixed in here too. Probably the thing that attracts the hummingbirds the most, and there's still some blooms on there. This is called cardinal flower. This is red cardinal flower. So this is another native plant here. Got that going right there. And you can see the garden's kind of overgrown, which is somewhat by design and somewhat not. And then I do have some milkweeds mixed in here. So I was just showing you some swamp milkweed. And then this is butterfly weed. So this is another type of milkweed, and it has these orange blooms. You can usually find this and swamp milkweed at garden centers. So that is growing up here as well. Got some coneflower, some pink coneflower, another native. These are all natives here. Some phlox, which when I bought this was peppermint striped phlox. So it had stripes of pink and white, and now it's kind of separated into half of it is white and half of it is pink, which is pretty fun. Here's another lantana down here, the bloom of lantana. Again, not this is a native. This is called Indian pink, and I found it kind of hard to find here and there. It can be kind of spotty to find at garden centers, but right now it's not in bloom so much. There's only a couple blooms left, but when it is in bloom, it has a lot of these red stalks, and they've got these little yellow flowers in the middle, really, really pretty. So this can be quite big and showy, and this is just another gorgeous native plant here. I also do have some butterfly bush, some yellow butterfly bush. Right now it's quite overcast, so if it was sunny, we'd probably be seeing a lot of these plants covered with bees or with some butterflies. But right now it's quite overcast, so nothing quite like that. Some more liatris, or the blazing star, like I was showing in the very front garden there. And then I also mix in my gardens, you can see it here, there'll be more in the back where I can show you. I like to mix in some dill and fennel in my gardens here. Also some parsley. I think I've got some parsley growing up around here still, because that is a host plant for the black swallowtail butterfly. So that I mix that in here in hopes that they will sometime lay their eggs in here, which would be nice. So that's about all the stuff in the front here. But then going towards the back, got some hostas in the front yard, some ferns here. It's been a really good year for the ferns, with it being so wet and pretty humid here. But along my side garden here, this one is quite kind of crazy and overgrown and probably needs some maintenance. But I do like that there's a lot of places in here for the different um, animals to kind of hunker down. This is a vine that I've got growing up along my fence here. This is a trumpet honeysuckle. So this is another native. And we also have a plant that's native to the area called trumpet vine, which would have much larger flowers that are more orange. But these are like a pink kind of color with some little yellow shoots coming out. This is another great hummingbird plant. So this is a great native climbing vine, wonderful for the hummingbirds. Back here is where I've had really good success with all the dill and fennel. So I've got some patches of it growing up around here. Haven't seen any black swallowtail action yet this year, but I did have a giant swallowtail in the yard just a couple weeks ago, which was super, super exciting. I also have some native lilies back here, which are no longer in bloom. So I showed some of those pictures of those lilies earlier in the season, but these are called Turk's Cap Lily, and they've gotten quite tall. One of them is about, oh gosh, I don't know, 5.5, 6 feet tall here. So that has gotten quite big with a lot of blooms. And then right next to it, you can see here's a nice big bush of fennel. So if there are any black swallowtails around, this would be a fabulous place for them to lay their eggs on. So did a little scan earlier, didn't see any on there, unfortunately, but you never know. I've got more of the honeysuckle vine. They're growing on this trellis. Some more phlox, which is starting to fizzle, but it was bright purple with little white accents, really pretty. Phlox is another native. And then bee balm. So the bee balm is kind of fizzling as well. But this is a great plant for hummingbirds, butterflies. If you have the hummingbird clearwing moths, they seem to really love bee balm. And it's an herb too, so it's got a nice smell to it. But that is starting to fizzle. So you can also get it in a light purple color called Monarda. But this is my bee balm, which is starting to fizzle a little bit there. And then Joe Pyeweed. I've got a lot of Joe Pyeweed sprinkled in. Joe Pyeweed is another great plant for bees and butterflies. Like I said, if it was sunny out today, this would be covered in bees. It usually is quite covered, which is neat. And now this isn't in bloom at all, but you can kind of see the leaves there. This is meadow rue, so this will bloom early in the spring. It's another native, and it has little purple flowers. And then I also have a lot of goldenrod that's just popping up all over the place. So I like to keep a couple sprigs of that around because it is such a good plant for the fall. It's a really nice, a nice plant for pollinators. So I've got some goldenrod popping up, ragweed popping up all over, a whole bunch of fennel right here. So the fennel isn't native, but it is an herb. So you can use the seeds for cooking and everything. And this is one called bronze fennel, actually. And the stems of it and the little sprigs of it here will kind of smell like licorice, which is really fun. So this is a nice big tall fennel here. So really cool. And then the swamp milkweed here in my backyard has been in bloom. So this is another one you can find in garden centers. The swamp milkweed and the orange milkweed or butterfly weed you can usually find in garden centers pretty easily. I'll show you the common milkweed. I've got that in another section of the yard. That isn't in bloom anymore, but you usually can't find it in garden centers because it does spread quite a bit and it's super, super common. So it's easy to grow in your backyard if you collect the seeds. And this has been in bloom for a bit, so you can see it's already starting to produce some seed pods here. And as the season goes on, those will get bigger and they will start to turn gray and pop open. And that is when you'll want to harvest the seeds. So back here, I've got a whole bunch of the Joe Pye weed, and the swamp milkweed and the fennel are all quite tall, and have created a nice little dense portion there of the garden. And so then I'll show you one final part of the garden in my backyard area, which again is not very big. And back here I have some common milkweed, so I'll show you that. That is all of this here. So I used to have other things planted here, and the common milkweed has kind of choked a little bit of it out. Down here, I've got that Indian pink plant that I was showing from my front yard that had those red tubes with a little yellow flower poking out of the top. So I've got that here. That is no longer in bloom, but there is a lot of common milkweed here. So common milkweed is great for the monarch butterflies, especially. They will lay their eggs on the swamp milkweed and on the orange milkweed, but the leaves of this common milkweed are just so big. It gives the caterpillars a lot of food for when they hatch. So the best thing to do if you're looking for the eggs of the monarch butterfly caterpillar, or the monarch butterfly at all, or the eggs and the caterpillars will be on the underside of the leaves. So you can kind of flip over the leaves and see if you've got yourselves any eggs or caterpillars. And now would be absolutely the time to do that. If you want to grow common milkweed in your backyard, that is all you need right there. And that's how I started it here in my backyard. These are the seed pods that are starting to grow. And just like the swamp milkweed, these will start to turn gray and they will burst open more towards the fall, and you can gather those. They do need to undergo what's called cold stratification, so they do need to have a cold spell in order to sow, in order to grow. So you can either wait until winter's over to gather them, or because they do disperse with the breeze quite easily, you can gather them in the fall and then store them in your refrigerator for a couple months, and then you'll be fine. Do have some more Joe Pye weed back here. And then my New York ironweed, I had some of this in the front that was just starting to go to bloom. It's got some powdery mildew on it because it's been so humid. But these are the blooms, the New York ironweed. So these are super pretty. And within the next couple of days, they'll really start to come out even more. You can see how they're starting. And this is another fabulous plant for the butterflies and hummingbirds. And it is a native, and it grows very tall, so that will grow several feet up. So that's a really cool plant that I really like in the garden. So, and then just another little patch here of the Joe Pye weed. So this is the Joe Pye weed here, and then it's mixed in with some more swamp milkweed. So the swamp milkweed has more smooth leaves. The Joe Pye weed has some serrated leaves, but over time this has grown to be a nice big patch of that as well. And then the common milkweed is just is and has been kind of moving on in and encroaching. So I don't cut it down until after monarch season is over. So got some more time to go until that ends. But that is just a little tour of my backyard garden. Don't need anything super big or showy in order to attract some wildlife to your backyard. every year I get more and different types of things, different species of butterflies, different species of bees, even birds. While I was recording this, I got a little distracted because there was a Carolina wren that's been singing its heart out this morning, and it was calling from nearby. And so that's kind of a newer bird for my backyard. So you never know what kind of things will show up if you make yourself a little backyard habitat. So that's everything I have for you guys today. We'll be back on Saturday with another broadcast. And until then, have a wonderful week and we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.